good. That was a lot better than I thought
Yeah.
about that.
All right. So my name is PC Basics, and I'm with.
I'm Ryan, also known as John American 2.
All right. So today we're doing a little thing I like to call a tech talk, kind of like a TED talk, but with tech.
Tech Talk,
Yeah.
with tech.
Like
This is the
technology.
first episode of the podcast.
Yes.
We'll see if this continues. Hopefully, it will. This will be a fun topic.
Yeah. So obviously, my channel is tech oriented. I talk a lot about PCs, phones, technology, stuff like that. And Ryan is pretty interested in some of this stuff. So we
Yeah,
just decided to do a podcast.
yeah. If you ever watch my channel, you might not think I'm the smartest guy or anything, but actually in real life I do know quite a bit about technology and other scientific things. So yeah, it's just a topic that interests me, and yeah, let's just get into it.
All right, and you had a database style class, right, where you were doing file storage or something like that, correct?
Yeah, we were kind of doing a little bit of the class is mostly about fair data, which is data that is fair stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reproducible, which is basically an up and coming kind of principle that they're trying to kind of, I don't know how to say this, but like get people that are like doing experiments and doing stuff with data, try to making it out there and available to everyone on the internet, so that way it can be like experiments can be reproduced, and so all the information can be like double checked accurately.
Yeah, without accurate data, you can't have a good database.
Yeah, so then in that class we learned about things like Unix and Linux and Python, and R, if you know what R is.
Have you tried Have you tried C, like C
We
sharp,
have not
C?
we have not done C programming language. Uh, I know that is the basis of what Unix is created from,
Yes.
but we haven't gotten that deep into it. This is mostly just kind of an introductory level
Okay, so
data programs.
So, for those of you who do not know, I am taking a database class and a networking class right now. And last semester, I took a Unix class, which we learned about Unix, BSD. What were the other ones? We learned a little bit about C++, C sharp, and C++, and mostly just the GNU or GNU tools. Um, and basically went over the how Unix and Linux are different and how they each have their own separate kernel with their own file system and what's the word I'm looking for? What is it? Directory. Yeah, and then we learned about HPUX, Solaris, and Untrix or Ulix. I forget how it's pronounced, but anyway, um,
Like the tech guy you are.
yeah, uh, yeah, and we learned about how Mac OS is technically a BSD, stuff like that. Um,
And BSD that stands for Berkeley Software Distribution, or I think it's something like that.
yeah,
That's also a derivative of Unix.
yes. Let me look. I wrote it down. Yeah, it's Berkeley Software Distribution. So yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so
So where do we start off?
we can either start with Unix, um, DOS through the command prompt, or something I kind of was experimenting with today is formatting drives with the command prompt.
Ooh, formatting drive with command prompt. talk about Windows,
Yeah.
Windows command prompt.
Mhm.
Um, I back in the day, like a couple years ago, I was really into command prompt and trying to learn what I could about command prompt, try to know what it was, how you use it. Um, I thought it was really cool. I actually could do some pretty cool stuff on there. And there's actually a thing that there's a command you can type in on into command prompt, and it will play Star Wars: A New Hope, I think.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, like not like the actual movie. It just displays it with like different characters.
Yeah, and you showed me how to do that,
Yeah,
right?
it's really cool. It's like a simple like one line command. It's not even that difficult,
That's awesome.
but yeah,
Yeah,
it's really cool.
so
And yeah, that's one of a few things that I'm not going to share right now. I don't know exactly what like it is, but um, it was not necessarily the best thing.
you also learned how to do batch file scripting as well, correct? Like you looked up a video on how to open a fake virus, pretty much.
Oh yeah, that's actually really easy. It's not a you can do it's not you don't have to do a fake virus. You can just it's basically you can do anything. Yeah, if you just open up a text editor on your desktop, you just have to type in the commands that you normally would put into a command prompt window, and you can make it display certain error messages on your computer or certain like messages with certain types of boxes for sound effects or whatever, and you just save it as like a certain batch file, and it will basically just do whatever you have put in there because it's not actually that difficult. Um, yeah, there's lots of videos about how to do it on YouTube, and yeah, it's not
Awesome. All right, I just realized I said I was going to make a video on how to make a domain on Windows Server 2016 and I never actually made that video.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'll need to
I
do
guess
that.
I get doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were talking about formatting drives to prompt, you said?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I am not actually sure how one does that.
Okay, so on your computer,
Explain
so on Windows, you open the command prompt as an administrator and you would type in disk part as one word, no caps or anything, and that would run, and then you do list disk and you use a space in between the two of those, and it lists all the USBs, hard drives, solid state drives. Did I say USB? Well, anyway, all the drives you have on your computer, and it will say disk 0, 1, 2, however many you have, and it will say the status of the disk, which is either online, no media, offline. Um, it will tell you the size of the disk in bytes, pretty much, and if it's read in megabytes, kilobytes, gigabytes, it will tell you that, and then it will tell you the free space it has and stuff like that. And then you select the drive by typing select disk, and then you choose whatever disk, like 1 through, say you have 3, and you want to format the third drive. You type select space disks and then space the number as in 3. And then what you want to do to basically format the drive is you type clean, and then if you want to create a partition or volume, in my case I wanted to do a partition, so I hit create partition primary, and then to choose basically the format of the drive you want, like NTFS, new type file system, EXFAT, FAT32, stuff like that. You type format FS equals, and then you type NTFS or EXFAT, whatever you want. And then you can, if you want, assign a drive letter so you don't have to hit Windows X, go to disk management, and then put in its own drive letter. You can just do it from the command prompt. And obviously you don't want to use C because your C drive is where Windows is stored. So you'd want to use like D, E, F, Y, something like that. And so you type assign, and then you type in the drive letter. So it's really easy, and it doesn't take much time. And when you format the drive to the file system you want, or when you put the file system you want in there, you should type quick after that, like space quick, and that will do a quick format instead of taking like an hour to format a drive.
Let me ask you a question because I'm not really familiar. What exactly are you doing when you format the drive?
Okay, so formatting a drive is erasing every file and file system, directory, anything off the drive. So if you have folders and documents and stuff like that, it completely wipes it out, like brand new right out of the factory. So like if you reset your iPhone and you hit factory reset, that's practically formatting, except it doesn't delete the like operating system on it.
Operating system. I got you.
But formatting would delete the operating system.
So when you format something, you're basically just restoring it to its like factory reset.
Right. It completely wipes everything out.
Yeah. That's something I recently did with one of my USBs. I didn't realize that's exactly what I was doing, but I had some stuff on there, and I kind of knew for stuff that was important to a good drive. And I had some like old stuff on there. I didn't really know what it was. It was like old. So then I completely erased everything on there so I could create it into a bootable USB that runs Ubuntu Linux.
Nice.
That's what you showed me to try to do with your bootable USB 10 minutes video.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a very information. Seeing that. And it's really cool because yeah, you just have to all you have to do is plug it in to your computer and then boot it up and go boot it starts up. And running off the USB is just not even difficult. I'm writing different operating system on a computer which would normally have like Windows or Mac OS or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I love about USBs and making them bootable, especially, is just being able to run Unix or Linux or whatever you want off the USB is amazing. Sadly, you can't do that with Windows or anything, but still really useful and awesome.
That's a great thing because, like, let's say you want to end up trying out a couple different versions of operating systems or different flavors of Linux. You don't have to buy different computers. You could totally just get like a couple of USBs and load them all onto USB and use it all on the same computer.
Yeah, the only downfall is if you write anything on the USB, like such as doing like sudo space install or apt dash get slash install whatever you want, and then dist upgrade. It won't save the update you did, so usually you can't save your files onto the USB when you're actually using the operating system, but you can do it and then offload it onto a different USB stick and then install it right back in. So
Yeah, it's still very educational thing to do if you're trying to figure out how to learning how to do different operating systems. Like if you want to permanently switch over to another one.
yeah, like a lot of people do that because they don't usually, especially for like Kali Linux or Red Hat, they keep it on a USB because those are basically digital forensics and hacking versions of Linux, and you usually don't want that stored on your main computer because everybody then knows, like, oh shoot, he's trying to get into our network or whatever, so they just keep it on a USB so they can't get caught.
And Red Hat, if I'm correct, is one of the only versions of Linux that you actually have to pay for.
Yes, that is correct.
They do have, I think they do have a beta version that you can free.
Yeah, they lock a lot of that down, I think, though, if they do that.
Yeah, and then also they have like a pretty big trial.
Nice. I've never actually used Red Hat, but I have used Kali before, and I really like Kali. They're very different, but they're very intuitive and nice.
Alright, what's next on the docket?
All right. Do you want to talk about Unix a little bit and Linux, like the history of it?
Yeah, we can talk about that. I actually did some research on this not too long ago.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so basically, Unix started off back in the 1960s, 1969, with Bell Labs and AT&T
Yep.
company. What was the name of the guy that started? Was it Ken Thompson?
Yep. Ken
Yeah,
Thompson
Ken
and
Thompson.
Dennis Richards. Yep.
Dennis Richard. Yeah, those guys basically put together a system. Basically, it was revolutionary because it was portable. It could multitask, and you could have multiple users on it actually. And then yeah, and then eventually that gave rise to the BSD, the Berkeley Software Distribution, which that facilitated the creations of like things like Sun OS, Mac OS, Solaris, FreeBSD. Those are all kind of different versions of Unix. You could call them that. Basically, they just kind of changed up Unix a little bit and made it a little bit different, a little bit more modern. And those are some of the ones that are still used today. Actually, I don't think Sun OS is being used anymore, but it was something that came out of WSD.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So
One thing I'd like to
yeah.
add in is before Unix could actually multitask, and before it was coded in C or recoded, I should say,
Hmm.
they had Multex, which was
Yeah.
um, basically it was let me see here. Unix is uniplex, and Multex is obviously multiplex, and they called it multiplex just because it could do multiple things at once. And Unix later was able to do that through the terminal.
Hmm.
All right, you
So
can
yeah.
continue. And yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, the original Unix operating system is you really can't find that anymore today. I did look for it for a while to see if I could find an original Unix operating system, but I was gonna, yeah, but you really can't find it anymore. It's all been improved, modified into these different versions, if you could call them that, Unix. And nothing to know, Linux and is not actually derived from Unix. It didn't come from it. It was completely like started from the scratch. It didn't use any Unix source code. It was basically built from the ground up to closely mimic Unix, but not actually have Unix source code. And another one of these is actually Minx. I don't know too much about Minx, but it's very similar to the fact that it's like Unix, but it's not Unix.
Yeah.
And that's the thing today. You could say that Unix is dead, long live Unix, because Unix doesn't exist technically as a pure Unix, but it's found its way into almost every operating system that we use today, like from Windows, Mac OS, to Linux. So yeah,
Yeah, well, Windows does not use Linux or Unix or
really,
BSD.
I
It
thought
has,
it wasn't using Unix, but it like had some Unix like systems in it. If that does it use modular design?
what was that?
Does it use modular, like the modular idea?
I
The
believe
fact that,
so. I
yeah,
believe so.
that's a Unix thing. So yeah, so it, like part of Windows, it isn't actually Unix, but it's Unix like.
Windows is based on DOS, if you've heard of that.
I don't
And
think I've heard of those.
DOS is basically command prompt, which I'm probably gonna get roasted for saying that, but it's pretty much the same. It's before the GUI interface, the guided user interface, or basically applications and stuff were like they didn't have visuals. It was just a terminal, and
Yeah.
DOS was very prevalent in the 80s, and up until 95 they used DOS because in 95 they actually had GUI or the guided user interface so people wouldn't have such a hard time using their systems. I remember basically Microsoft became a monopoly because everybody was using Windows 95 and 98, and I guess they had to have alternatives to Windows, such as Mac OS, which was pretty big, and that uses free BSD.
Yeah.
Basically, it's its own version technically, and
Yeah.
they have proprietary applications that are only able to run in the Mac OS libraries, and those aren't public.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. Bringing it full circle back to I was fair data, thing about open source, different open source things. Those are examples of fair things because they're um, they're findable by anyone. Anyone can just have, pretty much almost anyone can just go ahead and download an open source operating system like Unix. You just have to go on the website and install it. I mean, whether or not you know what to do with it or how to operate it, that's up to you. Or like there is tutorials and stuff online and YouTube, but yeah, it's basically just out there free and free to use and distribute and modify.
Yes. So do you want to talk about networking a little bit? I could probably tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't really know much about networking, so what's this
Okay.
one?
So basically what networking is it's connecting computers together using topologies. And let me pull up a little topology map so I can kind of accurately describe them. So I did a project on this. I just needed a little refresher. So basically, there's a lot of different types of topologies, such as point-to-point, bus, ring, star, tree, mesh, and hybrid. And those are all ways of networking. And they can have, like, point-to-point is one computer to another. A tree has a bunch of servers and workstation computers. A mesh is basically um, a star and a ring, but they can be pretty much spread out wherever. A bus is just connecting a bunch of workstations together that are connected to a network. There's the hybrid that combines pretty much all of them. The ring, I don't know if I said that or not, but it has
Um, Dude,
what?
I'm sorry, but I accidentally had the lip button on, so I don't have any of my audio.
Oh no.
Oh no! I was wondering. I was like, man, this doesn't look right, and I saw the blue button was like, oh no.
Oh no.
Well, what do you want to do?
Um, you want to restart?
Oh,
Because that was like at least, what, 19 minus 7? That was 11 minutes.
oh, it's only 10.
10 minutes.
We were kind of going a little bit fast, didn't we? Anyways, where were we?
We were talking about networking.
Networking. Okay, continue.
So I don't know where I stopped, so I'm just gonna start with tree.
Start with tree. I think you
Okay.
went all the way to
So
bus.
tree is basically combining a bunch of workstations to some server, or I guess not a server quite. It's a hub or a switch, and then that goes back to the server. There's the mesh, which is a combination of a ring and a star. A hybrid, which combines all of them. A ring, which is basically a circle of workstations, and then it has one server they all connect to. There's a star, which has a hub in the middle, which connects to the server. The workstations are connected to the hub, and a printer is connected to the hub. And you can really add printers to all of these, but that's like the main one that shows it on the diagram. And then networking. So way back in the day, they used WEP, which stands for, I'm gonna have to cut this, but it stands for Wired Equivalent Privacy. But that was pretty much bullcrap because it translated all the packets and things sent through the internet from a computer to a ISP, internet service provider, such as AT&T or whatever, Verizon even, because cell phones do the same thing, they act the same. And basically it translated everything in the plain text, which meant if you send an email to somebody and it has like a foreign key or a public key or whatever for someone to access a file, anyone who was on that network could see that if they were using Wireshark or what's the other one called? I forget. Glasswire. And they could see pretty much everything that was said. And then nowadays we use WPA2, which is, I think, wired protection. Let me look it up. I forget. Wi-Fi protected access. So basically, WPA2 encrypts all the data, and then you can use AES encryption to actually make sure no one sees it, completely rearranges all the letters and characters and numbers, everything. So you send an email, it says, "Hi, I'm Noel," or something. Instead it'd be like completely unreadable by humans unless you...
Like QX.
Yeah. Exactly. And that encryption standard is like pretty good. It hasn't been broken yet, so that's why we use that. And basically setting up a router and a modem is not hard at all. You just pick the ports through the firewall you want to go through. You set up the SSID, so what the network is called. So mine is, actually I don't want to say mine, but basically when you scan for a router and you're like trying to connect with your phone, it will tell you the name of the network. Like a lot of people use FBI VAN. That one's popular. They let you change the network password, the admin password, and username. Basically, simple things like that. Very easy process. And you can change the frequency and the channel your network runs at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically networking. I know I went through that really fast, but it's because it's easy for me.
In other words, networking, basically, well, if you have a network of computers, you have a bunch of computers working together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like my printer and everything goes through my network so we can all print from it. But it's technically connected to my mom's computer, so if my mom's computer's not on, none of us can print. So that would be a pretty much point-to-point, technically, because we all have to go through hers.
Point-to-point, like P2P, right?
Yeah, PTP.
Like I've also heard that as peer-to-peer. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, same thing. It's the same thing. Yep. And then I'm almost done building the machine for a friend of mine, the computer.
Oh, yeah?
I had the wrong memory, and the CPU was dead on arrival, so I had to get another one. So what would have taken like 2 weeks to do is taking like 5 because the shipping is taking forever.
Yeah. Nowadays, shipping is slow because everybody's shipping.
Yeah. So that's that. And then I really want to learn about watts, volts, and amps.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm going to be good at that.
Mostly, just a little bit of just like knowing how electricity flows through things and like how that works. And watts, volts, and amps are just units of measurement.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing. It's like it's not the same thing, but it's like saying foot or meter or mile.
Right.
Second, you know.
So do you want to talk about like drivers, like software drivers?
Sure. So,
All right. Do you want to start, and then I can kind of take over?
software. Why don't you start? Because I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about.
Okay. So a driver basically takes the motherboard, the processor, and all other components on the machine, and lets them talk to each other because they don't speak the same language. So like the processor can't just communicate with like a graphics card or the RAM or anything, even though they're all plugged into the motherboard and the hard drives and all that. So drivers, and I know this mostly from Windows because I don't really mess around with Unix or Linux all the time, but sometimes I play with it. But the main thing you need to know about drivers is it just makes them all be able to communicate. So imagine being in Spanish class and me not knowing how to speak Spanish at all, um, even though I tried. Yeah, so basically I would need a translator to be able to communicate with the rest of the class because I would need a driver basically to be able to speak
I think
Spanish.
a better analogy might be if you're sitting at the World Council and everybody there speaks a different language, and you have one person that speaks every language that translates for everybody.
Yes, that's a
Yeah.
way better analogy. So yeah, basically drivers just help components communicate and
So
makes it a
what's
lot
the
easier.
what's the relationship between the driver and the operator?
Okay, so the operating system runs in the background, and then the drive. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. There's the operating system, and then on top of that, the drivers are installed into the operating system. And Windows comes with a lot of them already because it's been around for forever basically. And then yeah, that's really it. I mean, it's on top of it.
I know that the operating system is basically what allows the hardware to communicate with software and in turn, like the user.
Yeah, and it wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to do that without the drivers. So
Mm-hmm.
yes,
All right.
sir.
Well, that's pretty cool. Learn
Yes.
about drivers.
Yep. Um. Yeah. I don't know where they go from there. I mean.
All right. Well, okay. Let's talk about. Let's bring it back to what we started on, which was about Unix and Linux and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So let's here. I know a little bit about Linux here. So Linux, that came after quite a while after Unix in 1991 by someone named Linus Torvalds. Um, he originally started it as like a personal project. Like it wasn't supposed to be like a big thing that it is today, but he basically just wanted to create a free operating system that is similar to Unix and other Unix-like systems of today. Um, he built it, as I said before, from the ground up. So it was like Unix, but it didn't actually have any source code of it. And now today, due to the fact that it was open and free, um, a lot of people created different versions or distributions of Linux, such as like Ubuntu or Red Hat or Fedora. Or there's like I think there's like over 600 different versions of Linux or different distributions.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah, each of them has like their own advantages, advantages, or different. I would say almost each of them is suited for a different person. I would say, or a different use. Like I know for a fact there's I don't remember what it's called, but there's a distribution of Linux which is just a crap one. So it's mostly meant for Linux developers to try to fix problems with Linux and like to train them to see different errors and bugs with the system to spot those out and fix them. And then now there's also things like like Kali, which is most known, I would say, for like quote unquote hacking and stuff like that. Or there's also different Linux for geared towards business such as Red Hat or gaming. I don't know exactly about.
Ubuntu is a good gaming one.
Yeah, Ubuntu is a good gaming, but I'd say Ubuntu is also very good all around. It's very good at a lot of different applications.
Yeah,
It's not geared towards one specific type of task.
right.
Yeah, that's one of the. I think that's one of the most popular ones. Is Ubuntu, and then also I know that there's one called Linux Mint, which is basically Linux, but it is very similar to Windows, so it's very easy to learn, and it's not expensive for someone.
Yeah, Mint is one of my favorite ones because it's so simple. It's just like Windows, except it's got its own little features and names for things.
Exactly.
I know. I'm pretty sure you can play Minecraft Java Edition on Ubuntu.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and also speaking of it, when I booted up my portable USB that I talked about my Ubuntu came preloaded with a few games actually, a few games. None of them were actually good. I mean, it's not like bad. It was like solitaire and chess, and I was like, standard stuff that you might find. But I thought that was like a little bit kind of interesting because I didn't actually. There's not a whole lot of that going on with other operating systems that I noticed. I mean, I know Windows does have some things like Candy Crush and
Oh yeah.
software. Like, I think that's just like an interesting little fact about it. Too.
Yeah, and going back to the Linux topic I mean, we're still there, but going back to how Linux is different from Unix is um, Unix used to actually have the GNU or GNU tools, but it was like not standard. And the reason Linux became so popular and mainstreamed is because they made an agreement with Richard Stallman, or I guess Linus did, to basically get those GNU tools installed on every version of Linux, allowing people to basically code in C and have a compiler, and I believe it's a run log or something like that. Let me check real quick. I always have to write stuff down. A runtime library, which basically shows like open C projects or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if it's like a rumor or whatever, but Linux apparently is supposed to stand for Linux is not Unix. I don't know if
That
that's true.
is. Let me.
It might be just a joke, but it's true that it's not. It's just similar.
Yeah, that was GNU, which is not Unix, and that's kind of contradictory though because it all runs on Unix and Linux. So like, take that with a grain of salt. I mean, it's not Unix, it's not Linux, but yeah, I mean that's what it runs on. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right now I'm making a Ubuntu bootable USB.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
following in the footsteps.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question. See if you know. Let's say you wanted to have a quick USB with just a standard version
With a standard what?
standard version of Linux, like say like or Linux,
Okay.
and what would be the minimum size USB that you would need for that?
I mean, I'm pretty sure you can run it on honestly a 2 or 4 gig USB, but I'd say you'd be best off with an 8 gig because most newer ones that are 64-bit really need like 8 gigabyte or so.
Mm-hmm. I think the one that I downloaded it on is 32.
Okay.
So it's kind of a little extra space on it.
Yeah, 32-bit is always recognized as x86 and 64 is x64.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yes, yes it is. Um,
Uh,
so I guess we'll start to end it there if you want.
yeah. So today we talked about Unix, Linux,
Yep,
a little bit
and
about drivers, networking, operating systems, stuff like that. So
yeah,
that's
and
cool.
don't forget to check out the YouTube server on Discord I made. I have it right above my page where the channel art would be. I got the link to it where you can join. Check out Nunikin 2, the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Anything you gotta say?
I think that's it. I think watch out for some future videos on my channel as well as some future videos on your channel going up this city.
Oh, by the way, I got one more thing I'd like to mention. Is stay safe out there. Use the 12 feet or what is it? 12, 6 feet apart. 6 feet apart. Um, wash your hands, and don't use Zoom because Zoom has two data breaches in it that people know of right now, where they can either control your system or leak your data. So stick to Skype or Discord.
Oh, also one more thing I want to shout out here. Now that we're all hanging out inside, all gyms are closed. So you should check out Rip and Tear Athletics. Get
Yes,
some at-home workout routines.
yes, exactly. That is a
I've been following.
good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Yes. Stay healthy. Try to maintain at least a somewhat decent routine of what you're normally doing. So yeah,
All right. So
that's all I gotta say.
thanks for joining us, and thanks for being here, Ryan.
Mm-hmm. Been a good time.
All right. Adios.